I just want to say hello, everyone, and welcome to the iHeart America show with Dawn and Ella. And every week we take you on compelling and thrilling journeys featuring American legends, unsung heroes, and esteemed celebrities. We will showcase incredible stories from fascinating people, get the inside scoop from the most intriguing people on the planet. My fellow co-host Dawn is here to tell you about our upcoming guests, and boy, am I honored to have the two associated guests that we'll be interviewing today.
Okay, thanks, Ella. Our first guest, we have a married couple today, and the first part is the wife team, and the team, that's Laurie Jacobson. She's she's got quite the Hollywood career. Just looking at her resume, it's amazing. She was a stand-up comic with Harvey Lembeck's comedy improv workshop with classmates like Robin Williams, John Ritter, John Larroquette. And she kind of morphed over into the writing side and the producing side. She wrote the book Hollywood Heartbreak, which I bought back in the day. Wonderful book. Lots of other books. She's written, produced documentaries, television specials, including the 20th anniversary of Mary Tyler Moore's show. Lots of other stuff. And her latest book is TV Dinners, 40 classic TV kid stars dish up famous recipes with a side of memory. So we'll be talking about that as well. So Laurie.
Well, thanks. Delighted to be here.
Well, delighted to have you. And of course, your other half is going to be with us in the second half hour, and that's Jon Provost, the actor who is probably most familiar to people out there as Timmy on the old Lassie television show. So I guess to tell us about your, how you went from being a stand-up comic with, I guess, I'm assuming this is when Robin Williams was first starting out, and John Ritter and John Larroquette. So, I mean, what was it like being a stand-up comic with those kind of people?
Well, Harvey Lembeck's class was an improv class, and there were a lot of folks in it who did stand up. Robin, of course, being one of them. Listen, from the day I sat in to audit the class and I saw this kid named Robin Williams and this other kid named John Ritter on stage. And I'll tell you, when they were together, I still think nobody ever saw John Ritter as funny and wild as he could be. Three's Company, he was so much funnier and crazier than that in class. And, Robin just pushed everybody to give their all. And you only had to see Robin once to know, hey, this guy's going to go places. And they were just beyond being incredibly talented. They were two of the nicest people you ever wanted to meet. Kind, generous, good-hearted, loving people. And tragically, we lost both of them so young. But it was an unforgettable time. And I just, there were other folks in the class who went on to success, both in front of and behind the cameras. And it was absolutely a magical time.
I bet. So did you keep up your contact with, as Robin Williams especially became such a huge superstar? I mean, did you still have contact with him, or did you get to go to any great parties at his mansion or anything?
No great parties. I kept up with him until he won the Oscar for Good Will Hunting. And I cried when he won because it was so incredible, really, to watch him from a kid who just moved down from San Francisco to getting Mork. And then to winning an Oscar, just so happy for him. And after that, his life took off in a million different directions. And it was hard for him to stay in touch with us guys. So we certainly understood that. But whenever I ran into him at the Improv or the Comedy Store, always hugs and kisses and love. He never forgot anybody. Ritter was absolutely the same way. Larroquette, I wish I could say he was the same way, but he forgot us as quickly as possible. I'll tell you, when he was in class with us, now I'm talking out of school, when John Larroquette was in class with us, he was separated from his wife. He was living in front of my friend Dan Cox's house on Laurel Canyon Boulevard. And he was going through a rough time. And he had a great time in class, had affairs with almost every woman in class except myself. And then he reunited with his wife, who was a casting person, and she cast him in Night Court, and we never saw him again.
Ella, I know Ella has a question.
Yeah, just to circle back when you were talking about Robin Williams and John Ritter, I believe they burned so brightly in their brief lifetime, but they've left us with such special memories. I mean, those shows still are discussed, and when I think about those shows, I just have such fondness, and I'm so glad I was able to grow up and watch those shows, including Lassie, of course. So I wanted to get back to you. Can you tell us more about your transition from comedian to the production end of things?
Well, sure. I moved to LA to seek an acting career, but I was so fascinated by the people who had come before me, who had made me want to be an actress. And I think because of my natural curiosity about those people, I loved walking literally in their footsteps. So I'd go to Schwab's drugstore and I'd be sitting in a booth, and a career waitress, at that time in the early 70s, it was still a time when people held their jobs for 30 and 40 years. So my waitress at Schwab's had been there 40 years. And she let me know that I was sitting in Clark Gable's favorite booth. And, tingles. And how do you know that? Well, I waited on him. Oh my God. And, these were people that nobody had asked questions of. She was full of stories, which made me start asking all kinds of questions of people. I mean, parking lot attendants, maitre d's, the Pops characters at the gates. For example, at Warner Brothers, Jack Warner was famous for deciding that somebody was fired on Friday, but not telling them. And he would leave it up to the guards at the gate to tell the Bowery boys or whomever on Monday when they reported for work that they were not allowed onto the lot. These guys, they saw everything, tears, joy, laughter, you name it. And no one had ever, and ghosts, they walked the studio lots in the middle of the night and saw and heard really remarkable things. So I began collecting these stories, Ella, to get to your question. And my first book, Hollywood Heartbreak, grew out of those stories that I collected, because honestly, what happened to these people, you couldn't make up more interesting stories.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. I lived in Los Angeles myself, and oh my goodness, you just can't make it up. You're absolutely right when you say that. I mean, I just can't believe all the things I witnessed, the things I heard. It definitely makes for some interesting stories later in life.
Yes, absolutely. So, I wrote my first book, and I was immediately asked to write a documentary about Hollywood's strange and mysterious and sometimes unsolved mysteries. And I was just off to the races with my writing. And my acting training came in very handy because I did a ton of appearances. What was it? Hollywood Stories and just
tons mysteries and scandals. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. all that kind of stuff. And so it was very, very fun.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Well, you did so much work about ghosts. So tell us, what are we've all heard about certain like I guess the Hollywood hotels haunted or whatever. Certain venues are haunted, but who's like Abraham Lincoln's ghost has been seen so much in Washington D.C. Who are the main spirits that seem to haunt Hollywood?
Well, I don't know about Maine, but Marilyn is seen a lot. And I believe that's because her she's still so beloved. And I mean, by millions, when you think millions and millions of people think about her on a daily basis, which is just remarkable, that can be a very strong pull for a spirit, whether they like it or not. I truly believe she'd love to move on, but she's sort of held back a little by the great pull from people who love her here still on Earth. So she's been seen at her grave site in Westwood. There was a mirror at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel. She loved to stay there. And she had her favorite suite there and had an antique full-length mirror installed in her favorite suite. And when she died, they removed the mirror. It went to the basement, and there it stayed covered up for till the mid-'80s. And they did a big renovation of the hotel. And by that time, the history of the mirror had long since been forgotten. They just found a pretty mirror in the basement and thought, hey, this would look great in the lower lobby. And they hung it. So on the night of the grand reopening, this waitress was polishing the mirror. She noticed that it was smudged, and she polished it, and she saw a blonde in the mirror, and she thought someone had come up behind her. She turned around, no one was there. She looked back in the mirror, and it was Marilyn Monroe, fixing her hair, primping her makeup, just as she must have done hundreds of times in that mirror. Now, is that a ghost? Or I think it was just, the mirror was covered for 20 something years. And I think it was just the energy held still in the mirror. And that has dissipated now over all of these years. She was seen in the mirror frequently, and the longer it was hung in the hotel, the less people saw her. So, the same thing on Civil War battlefields. Are those ghosts, or is what happened there so enormous that it's just sometimes it's just like a video loop where the energy just repeats and repeats and repeats?
Yeah, I've always thought that too, like almost like echoes from the past. And, I've contemplated ghosts before, and I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. We can only speculate, but it really seems like they're still caught in that time period. So they may not even be aware of it. And maybe it's just some kind of echo through time.
Yes, that's a perfect word for it, Ella. That really is an echo. I love that. Because I've gone to a lot of places, with parapsychologists and psychics, and certainly we had spirits absolutely respond to things that we said and did. And that's definitely a ghost. That's not an echo, because they are responding in the present time. And some spirits don't see you at all. I loved, some of the stories. Okay, at the what used to be the Hollywood Palace on Vine Street, some of the first spirits that were seen there were not below the knee, like they'd see from the knee up people walking across the floor. And they realized that the original floor of the palace was about 2.5 feet lower than the current floor. So spirits often do not recognize remodeling. And so they didn't recognize that a new floor had been put in there. That's why they often walk through walls. Those walls were not there when they lived there.
You sound like this when you talk about spirits, like you're speaking with great knowledge. So is this has become an important part of your life? I'm guessing maybe after you started investigating it in terms of Hollywood, but are you into this kind of parapsychology field?
Well, it's a ton of fun. I got here because I wrote a lot about unsolved mysteries and strange and mysterious deaths, and there were always ghost stories attached to those stories. And then one morning, I was in Grauman's Chinese Theater. We were going to give a tour of this grand movie palace. And I was there with about 5 other historians and a guide, and we all experienced a ghost there. We were traversing little traveled areas of the theater, and this spirit didn't like it. He was there to protect that theater, and who were we and why were we going into these secret areas? And he let us know that he didn't appreciate our presence there. And I set a new land speed record that day running for the lobby. Really, I was scared out of my wits. I'm less scared now, and I'm very curious. And I love some of the stories and some of the things that have happened to me with these guys. But there have been, the parapsychologists I've worked with have had terrifying experiences. And I don't have any desire to to be with them at that time.
And, just to kind of switch topics a little bit, I'm curious about your personal time in Hollywood as far as your perspective, and I'm just curious what were the highlights in Hollywood? What do you most enjoy about Hollywood?
Well, clearly I'm a historian, and I was just entranced with the history. And at that time, so little had changed. I mean, when you think of the Sunset Strip, the majority of it is still 1 and 2 stories high. I love that. And the whole Spanish feel of the town, that has changed tremendously now. They paved Paradise and put up a parking lot.
Know that song.
which makes me very sad. But I just loved the whole feel, driving through. I lived in Beechwood Canyon underneath the Hollywood sign, and I lived there 24 years, and I really needed to see the sign every day. And then one day, I didn't need to see it anymore, and I realized I was done.
Right. And it's also kind of a heartbreaking story. Even the sign is tragic because they used to say Hollywood Land.
Right.
Yes. And
Peg
it was lit up. It was lit up with 4,000 electric globes. You could see it from anywhere in the city.
And when one of those insider stories, Peg Entwistle was the just up and coming starlet who jumped to her death.
Yes.
Memorably, right after her first hockey, I think it was called 13 Women, and she was associated with, I believe, was Brian Keith's father or something like that. Did you know that story?
Yes. Yeah. She married a gentleman named Robert Keith, and he was Brian Keith's father. And when Peg was married to him, she had no idea that he had been married before and had a child. But that was another heartbreak for her, that he was, that marriage didn't last long. And he had completely and utterly deserted his first family and his child. So that was really not the kind of, she just had disappointment after disappointment in Hollywood. She was quite a big star on Broadway. And Betty Davis used to see everything Peg Entwistle was in on Broadway. She was a very good actress. And she came to LA, as so many do, to try and make it in the movies, and just had a string of bad luck. And then and she was living with an uncle on Beechwood Canyon, and told him she was off to visit a friend, and she walked all the way up to the Hollywood sign, and there were electrician ladders on the back of each letter. And she climbed the H, and God only knows how long she stood there looking out onto the city that had beaten her down. And then she leapt to her death.
This is going so fast because we talked to you for a couple hours. I want to give you time, though, to talk about the TV Dinners book, because you want to have a couple minutes left.
So thanks. God, you're right. It has gone quickly. Liz, I love talking about Hollywood. And as you mentioned, I'm married to Jon Provost, and through him, I've become friends with every TV kid star I ever dreamed of meeting. And I just have a wealth of riches in that arena. And I decided to bring them all together in a book called TV Dinners. And it's 40 kids from classic TV, recalling their memories and their favorite dishes from their past and currently. So it celebrates our love of classic TV and really our love of comfort food. And it's filled with photos. The thing I love about all these kids is that they're still friends today. 60 years later, they all still hang out with one another. If somebody needs something, they're there for them in a minute. They were the first. They were the first kid stars in this new invention called television. And they share a bond that is absolutely unbreakable.
Well, that's lovely. It's, there's still, we hear a lot about the tragic stories in Hollywood, but there's still so much beauty and great relationships and just work that's going to last and echo through an eternity. And it's just people have to remember that Hollywood has its beauty and its glamour and always has.
Yes, and you're right. Some of them did have a rough ride. Everyone in my book has a happy ending. And as I said, they even, it covers the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And kids in the 70s were helped by the kids from the 50s. And Paul Peterson with A Minor Consideration. I know you're having him on soon.
Yes.
And a portion of my profits goes to a minor consideration, which is an organization Paul started when he saw that some of his peers were not making it when the phone stopped ringing. You know, their childhoods were taken and they weren't prepared for life as most of us are.
That's a really example.
Yes, so he's lent a helping hand to hundreds of child performers. He's really spectacular. I call him the big kahuna of the kid stars.
Well, it's lovely. It's lovely to know that there's someone that looked out for the best interest and kind of and all those mentors that were there for the upcoming actors.
Yes, absolutely. So the book is brand new and it's available wherever books are sold. And I hope your fans will take a look at it.